What's up, everybody? It is Izzy. I would appreciate some feedback on these voiceovers. Do you like them? Do you not like them? Do you not care? Any of the preceding options are totally fine. First question of the day, though, is what do you do when you max out a machine and you fill up the GymPin with plates? You can get thinner plates, or you can just start working up in reps up to as much as 30. Because as we know from literature, anything up to about 30 reps is the same for hypertrophy. Anywhere from 5 to 30, that is. Next question is, when returning from rehabbing an injury, do you pay attention to it during a set? Yes, I do. I'm obviously going to be a little bit more careful if I'm coming back from an injury. Pay attention to pain levels. I try not to exceed like a 3 out of 10 because I'm not trying to re-injure myself right off of the bat. So I might not think about pain or injury when I'm healthy, but when I'm rehabbing, for sure. Next question is, have you ever thrown up while squatting or deadlifting? No, I have never thrown up doing squats or deadlifts or any other lift for that matter. However, I have thrown up after doing lifts before. Let's see, I did once from doing 20 rep squats, and another time, of all things, I was doing like max effort good mornings, doing like West Side style programming in like 100-degree heat with no air conditioner, and that one got me to yak as well. Some changes to my training here. Been doing a lot of machine stuff lately in this session, and then I start noticing a shift towards more free weight stuff, which will be continuing primarily for two reasons. One, I find it more fun, and two, I've been dealing with some injuries that are now mostly healed, so I can get away with it. What app do you use to log your workouts? I just use iPhone Notes. I know like, people probably think I use some fucking fancy ass spreadsheet to track things, but the difference in programming for hypertrophy and powerlifting is really stark. Really stark. You don't need complicated programming for hypertrophy. It's pretty much just be what you did last time. And the only recovery is, or the only programming nuances with volume and making sure that you're managing fatigue properly. But long gone are the days where I track tonnage and have graphs and charts of my volume. I just use iPhone Notes. How often do I review video with clients? The vast majority of clients that I work with, never, because they just pick my programming only option, which is literally just programming. But for full coaching clients, it's a lot initially. I usually request people to send videos every session. They start off doing that and then sort of send less and less as their form becomes more proficient. So it really depends on the person. But overall, it's just going to be any time that somebody sends me a video, I'm going to watch that and review it. This right here, by the way, is my favorite tricep isolation exercise, simply because it allows you to get good alignment with your shoulders, elbows, and wrists, and prevents pretty much elbow pain for almost everyone. Next question is, I am moving my stiff-legged deadlift to back day because when I do it on my lower body day, leg day, it causes too much low back fatigue when done with squats. Do you think leg curls alone can provide enough stimulus for hams on one of my leg days? Of course it can. Leg curls are better than stiff-legged deadlifts for pure hamstring size, in my opinion. Obviously, you should still do both, but the main function of the hamstrings is to flex the knee. And a stiff-legged deadlift, what you're doing primarily is hip extension. And obviously, the hamstrings do have a role in assisting in hip extension. And stiff-legged deadlifts are great because they put a huge stretch on the hamstrings. And we know that stretch-mediated hypertrophy is one of the big drivers for fast growth. But in the long run, definitely leg curls are enough, and they should probably be one of the things that you focus on driving the most, if not the most, for overall hamstring size. Next question was, is it worth it to do joint strengthening special exercises? No, not in my opinion. When I started lifting, my wrist was 6 inches or 6¼ inches in circumference, which I know people make a big deal about that because it's supposed to predict your genetic potential. Now my wrists are 7¾ to 8 inches. And I know some people are going to be like, well, that's because of PEDs. No, my wrists were already getting thicker when I was natural as well, and they were up to like over 7 inches before I made the switch. What were my best lifts before PEDs? So I'm just assuming that this person is talking about powerlifting, and my best natty lifts were 573 squat, which is 260 kilos, 385 bench, which is 175 kilo bench, and 606 deadlift, which I think is 275 kilos. And, you can't use this to like predict how much PEDs are going to help. I've moved up in weight, like, at the top end of this last bulk, I was 270 pounds. My heaviest I was ever naturally, while like competing in powerlifting seriously, was like the low 200s. So it doesn't translate. And I know people are gonna ask me, what do you think you can total now? I don't even train low bar squats anymore. I don't even train sumo deadlifts anymore. I don't train wide grip benches with pause. So I have no idea what I could total now. None. Okay, gatekeeping first. Why would you even do a cycle? If you're 220 pounds and natural and lean, you're probably already bigger than 99.9% of the planet. So what's the point? Are you trying to become a professional bodybuilder, break world records in powerlifting? Do you have a realistic chance of doing either of those things? Because if not, why are you taking years off of your life and spending thousands of dollars per year on the health monitoring costs, on the actual drugs themselves to get even bigger? So probably don't even do them in the first place, would be my suggestion. But if you're going to, it bothers me that there's actually a correct answer to such a lazy-ass question, because all I know about you is how much you weigh, and I'm going to assume you're male based on the body weight. And the answer in this case would be 3 milligrams per kilo of testosterone, a long ester. So you're looking at 300 milligrams a week for a first cycle. All right, next question is somebody asking for pictures of my dogs. So I don't think everybody on Instagram knows, but on YouTube, they probably don't. I have 2 Labradors. One is a brown lab named Kona, and the other one is a yellow lab named Mellow. And yes, they are both mine, and I love them. Next question is, I'm always getting ill when I push training. Any ways to fix this? You have to, some context in my answer to this question is that this is a guy, he's a cool guy, but he's like 19 and he's asking me questions very often that reflect the fact that he's 19. Like, he's got a history of doing training arms 7 days a week at one point. So just some kind of fuck stickery silliness. And so I basically told him that, like, you train in a sustainable way for one, take some actual off days, use a real program, and make sure you're getting your vitamin C and enough sleep and all that. Next question is, how are PEDs taking years off your life, even if you use it responsibly? And the bottom line is, like, there's there's no get out of jail free card in this one. You can't expect to push your body weight up to 250, 260, 270, 280, 290, 300 pounds. So, 110 kilos, 140 kilos. You can't use drugs to push your body weight that high and not expect there to be consequences. Now, if you're saying, like, I'm never going to go over 300 milligrams of test and I'm never going to go much over 200 pounds, fine, maybe you get away with that. But we're talking, like, competitive bodybuilding and powerlifting at the highest levels, no way. This question was, is there any home gym replacements for the adductor machine? In my opinion, no. There is no replacement for the adductor machine. It is absolutely the best machine that you can do for adductor size, which, if you're a physique sport competitor, is super important because adductors make up like half of your leg size, or at least a third in front shots. How long do my training sessions take? It depends on the training session. My upper body push sessions, so like chest, shoulder, triceps, 90 to 105 minutes. Back and bicep sessions, 75 to 90 minutes. Legs, 105 to 120 minutes. And they asked, like, is there any time that I don't go above? I don't go above 2 hours because it takes me about an hour round trip to drive to the gym. And if I am gone any longer than 3 hours, it messes up my meal timing to the point where it's not worth it. Like, when I'm bulking, I can't get all my meals finished, or I just get too hungry at the end of my workout. So 2 hours is the practical, logistical limit for me there. The next question is, does mind-muscle connection matter, or should you just lift heavy with good technique? And like I said on the slide, it's the most annoying answer in fitness, but it totally depends on the context. So when you're doing big compound movements, in my opinion, like a bench press, a squat, a deadlift, I don't think about mind-muscle connection during those movements. Those movements are supposed to train multiple muscles. You're supposed to get hypertrophy in many different muscles from those movements. But if we're talking about a weak body part, like say you have weak biceps, I would be focusing on things like preacher curls that focus you to stay on that muscle group. The next question is Messi or Ronaldo, and I go with Messi for sure. So I feel like what you're asking me is, can I still make progress if I basically put no effort whatsoever into nutrition? You're basically just going to be like the average person who tries to eat healthy. And we all know that's usually. So what's going to happen is that your body composition is largely going to be determined by your genetics. So whatever your natural body fat set point is, you're going to hover around that range. Now, if you do make a concerted effort to eat healthier choices, or you have some sort of system for controlling intake, you can improve your body composition to some degree. But here's the thing. You are going to make some progress for sure. As long as you're progressing your lifts in the gym, muscle will be built. But it'll just be much, much slower than people who put in the full Monty of effort into nutrition. There's a reason that pretty much every good bodybuilder, male, female, enhanced or natural, does diet phases and gaining phases. They work better. Drugs, my favorite topic. I would still be looking at increasing your dietary electrolyte intake, even if they're showing up well on labs. Because, for example, when you eat a diet deficient in calcium, it doesn't necessarily show up on your labs because you will just leach that calcium from your bones rather than have some sort of electrolyte imbalance, because you need those things to be in balance to live. So what I would recommend is something like 2 grams of sodium per 1,000 calories, 1 gram of potassium per 1,000 calories, and about half of that for magnesium and calcium. Depending on how many calories you're eating, you can figure out how much electrolytes you need. Then go on Chronometer and plot your average daily diet and make sure that you're getting enough of all those electrolytes, and then give it about 4 weeks and see if those cramps don't go away. Frequency should be a function of how often you can progressively overload a muscle or a movement. So in the literature, what it basically shows is that in volume equated setups, hypertrophy outcomes are roughly the same regardless of what the frequency is. So for example, if you had a program where you did side delts twice a week for 1 set versus a program where you did side delts once a week for 2 sets, the outcomes for hypertrophy would be similar. However, the issue is that in real life, you could recover from both of those sessions much, much faster and do it again. In my case, for example, I can train lateral raises every 48 hours doing 1 set to failure. It wouldn't make any sense for me to wait unnecessarily long to train that movement again. And you could say, well, you can just still keep volume equating. But the problem is that once those volume numbers get high enough in a single session, that starts to become an ineffective way to distribute volume. For example, let's say I've worked my way up to training a muscle group with 3 sets 3 times a week. If I tried to do 9 sets in 1 session, the latter sets, everything after maybe like the 5th set or so, is going to be very low quality volume because I'm going to have to use such low loads compared to what I started with because of the intra workout fatigue. And not only that, even if I actually did 9 sets in 1 workout for side delts, it still probably wouldn't take me a full week to recover. So it doesn't make sense to wait that full week. So frequency is going to be both a function of how you distribute your volume and how often you can set PRs on something. Those two things will interplay to create an optimal frequency, but the optimal frequency, depending on the volume that you're using, is still always going to be as frequently as you can set PRs.